Hey everybody, I'm Marv Blauvelt. I'm an actor and a writer and a bodybuilder. I get this question a lot. How long have I been in acting, producing, writing? Actually, it was bodybuilding that kind of brought me into all these other facets of what I'm doing right now. I was a competitive bodybuilder for about 10 or 11 years, competed all over the country. I was competing in a show in New Jersey, and the company was producing a small, an independent feature horror film. Um, and they needed to cast bodybuilders in this film, and so they contacted me. I auditioned, got the role, and next thing I know, I'm acting in a horror film. And I've always been a horror film fan. I got the bug from that movie. The movie's called Beef, You Are What You Eat. It did pretty well on the festival circuit. It's kind of a little bit of a dark comedy as well. And from there, I got good reviews. I ended up getting an acting coach back in Indiana. And from there, I started getting roles all over New York, Chicago, Wisconsin, Boston. And then after a while, I said I'm going to start writing my own scripts because I've been such a horror fan. So I teamed up with a writing partner that I had done a film for, Trevor Wright out of Virginia Beach. We wrote a feature with the company that I started with in New York, and it's called Sculpture. It did very, very well. Then from there, I kind of branched off, kind of formed my own company called Muscle Wolf Productions. Um, did our first feature. It was an anthology called Psycho Street, and so now I'm not only writing and acting, but I'm also producing, and I'm in California now, which is just unreal to me. So that's all I got started. As far as which do I prefer, acting, writing, producing? Because of the bodybuilding, I have to continue doing that because I get cast in roles that do, kind of lead to that. I have a few film projects that have been offered my way next year that I have to, I have to be a slave to the gym, which is not a big deal. I'm a gym rat anyway. I started in high school, and it's kind of, for me, going to the gym is kind of like breathing or eating. It's just something you do. So I have to give a lot of credit to that because that's kind of the roles I get. As far as producing can be it can be very fulfilling, and it can be very frustrating. So I do like producing. It's probably the most challenging of all the three roles that I do, just because I feel like you're kind of spearheading your own ideas and your own projects, and you have to bring on a team. And sometimes people believe in your projects or your ideas, and sometimes they don't. They're just there for a paycheck. So I always like to bring on a team who is not just there for a paycheck. I like to bring on a team who believes that a project's going to be worthwhile. As far as writing is probably my favorite of the three. I love writing. I love writing, collaborating with people, but I also like writing on my own. I don't write your typical. And mostly what I write is horror or comedy, and a lot of times horror slash comedy. I don't write your typical zombie, outbreak movie or your typical slasher in the woods. It's not anything I want to see again. I've seen it a million times. I like the unusual. I like edgy. I like nice twists. I like things that are people are gonna watch and say, "Oh my God, that's nothing like I've ever seen before." I like witty dialogue, and I like strong characters. I will say, a lot of the writing I do, some of it is very, very strong R-rated, but I don't write projects because of that. If it comes out that way, then it comes out that way. Another thing about gore and blood, I mean, I don't skimp on it, but I don't write a project just for the sake of putting in a severed head or a dismemberment. That's not my thing either. So I guess I would say they all have different satisfaction levels. I think the most satisfying for me is to write a script and to see the actors bring it to life. I love to see characters being brought to life that I envision in my head. I think that's very rewarding. As far as bodybuilding goes, I've got to say that bodybuilding is probably the center stone, or the cornerstone, I guess is a better word, of everything that has gone on with me in a film or an entertainment career. I started when I was probably 15 years old. I grew up on a farm in southern Indiana. I was always the smallest kid in class. Um, so my dad, who was always an avid weightlifter, had weights in the garage, and I started doing that as a kid. And I never got tall, but at least I got a little bit bigger. So that was something that it kind of gave me self confidence and it gave me discipline. Um, and it made me kind of a little bit more at ease for being so short in stature. So maybe that's it. But I will say with it, many good things have come from it. Obviously, I would not have had an acting career or even probably a writing career had it not been for bodybuilding. I developed a company with a small production company with several of my friends who are also bodybuilders called Muscle Wolf Productions. Like I said, we produced our first anthology called Psycho Street. We had an amazing cast. It won some awards on several horror film websites. It's more of a very eccentric horror comedy. It's very hard to describe. It's kind of like a lot of people describe it as Creep Show on steroids. If you haven't seen it, we're very lucky to have Tiffany Shepis as our beautiful crypt keeper, who was the wraparound girl in the story. And then from there, several of the guys I formerly worked with, we were shooting for a reality series that we called Hot Blooded, which was following me and a lot of the. We had five guys who are all bodybuilder actors who would go to the horror film conventions, and we'd have booths. We were considered some of the Z grade celebrities, but we had a lot of people that knew us from the conventions, and we had hired somebody to follow us around to shoot us at all these conventions with a lot of the celebrities and a lot of the crazy things that happened with us. And we were picked up by an agency, and there was a lot of interest in the show. I kind of called it Jersey Shore meets Project Greenlight a little bit, because we were going to put all the guys in a house in the country and film a movie and then document that. Right now the show is being revamped. We have a lot of interest in trying to get it back off the ground. It looks like we may be recasting a lot of the original people, but it's all good. So that's one of the many projects that I'll be jumping headfirst into in the beginning of the year. So I've been very lucky because I have quite a bit of things that I have to look forward to in 2014, and that is one of them. But it was all bodybuilding. I mean, all this is based on, it's strange to see. I think one of the things that we had seen was there were so many scream queens in the horror genre, that these beautiful women like Tiffany Shepis, Debbie Rochon, Brooke Lewis. I mean, these beautiful women that do a lot of horror films. I wanted to put in these kind of beefy guys to give women something, because men always had kind of the eye candy. So that's kind of what we were doing with this. So we'll see what happens with it. Favorites. Wow, I have so many influences in what I do, and I have to say I'm a big fan. When I was a kid, I grew up watching the Hammer films, the British horror films, and I was such a fan of that gothic kind of style, and watching Christopher Lee as Dracula, and Peter Cushing as Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, and Ingrid Pitt, and some amazing things. But as far as the horror genre goes, I mean, there's so many subgenres of horror. The Exorcist to me is still one of probably the best, most epic horror films ever made. That film still, I know people today are like, they joke about it, but when I was growing up, it was a frightening movie. I remember the commercials even scared the hell out of me. To think that some entity can get into a young girl and take over, that scared the hell out of me. I was a real big fan of the occult films of the 70s. The Sentinel is another movie that I think is totally overlooked, but it's frightening. John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors. I love. I know everybody goes to Halloween or The Thing, but I love In the Mouth of Madness. I love Prince of Darkness. I think those are totally two underrated films. Recently, in the last 10 years, I really got into some of the French films. But some of them were very graphic, as we were talking about. Martyrs I watched one time and I couldn't watch it again. It was so violent. I did like Inside. I thought Inside was relentless. I think it's one of those scariest slasher movies ever made. Wow. Today, who am I a fan of? I watched so much stuff. I just saw the Maniac remake. I thought that was. I'm not a fan of remakes, by the way, but if they do it a little different, I'll tolerate them. Um, as far as bodybuilding goes, I was always a fan of the little big guys because I'm a little big guy. So Lee Priest, he's an Australian bodybuilder, did really well. He's like 5'6", probably 230 pounds, blonde hair. I was a fan of him because he was this big little guy who got big and came over to the United States and did really well for himself. But yeah, that's some of my favorites, and I'm a big fan of indie horror because I do believe that the independent filmmakers push it to the limit. They're unique. They do interesting things. They don't skimp on stories. Not to put Hollywood down, but there's no protocol, there's no formula, and that's what I migrate towards. So, favorite roles. I've had several. I did a film for a filmmaker in the Midwest named Arthur Culliford. It's very Lovecraftian. Very, if you take Lovecraft and Clive Barker and David Cronenberg and you throw it all in a blender and take acid, that's exactly this short film. It's called Come, C-O-M-E, and it is visually stunning. And all the effects were practical. There's monsters and creatures and disfigurement. It's just, and the character I play is so dark and so ominous. I love that short film. It did very, very well on the circuit. It's one of the films that I highly suggest if you're a huge horror fan, especially if you're a Lovecraft fan. That's definitely one of the films that I was in that I totally enjoyed. I was in a horror comedy called Hypochondriac, where I play a doctor he's an LA doctor who goes back to a small town clinic. It's more of a horror comedy. Hilarious. It did very well too. I love that character. He's very geeky. They slicked my hair back, put me in big glasses, put a big overcoat on me, and people watch it, they don't even know it's me, which was really cool. Right now in the middle of making a film. I shot yesterday. I'm shooting tomorrow, called Within These Walls. It's a kind of like The Entity. If you guys remember the movie The Entity with Barbara Hershey, I play a father whose daughter is haunted by a demon that attacks her in a house that my wife previously was murdered by the demon. Felissa Rose is in the film from Sleepaway Camp. She will be shooting tomorrow with me, which I'm really excited about. I love Felissa. So it was a totally different role for me because I usually get like serial killers or abusive fathers or male stripper. I got that. I get that kind of stuff. So I was really excited to play a really good father who is trying to protect his daughter. So that's something I'm filming now. As far as writing goes, I wrote a film called Sculpture with Trevor Wright that we talked about. It was shot in 2008. It's about a girl who was physically and sexually abused by her father, which of course I played that character, which I always get. And she comes back for his funeral. She's an artist, and she's hired to produce artwork for an art show that's opening up in New York City. And the theme is the perfect male figure. So she moves into the father's house and starts killing these muscular models and putting their body parts in this artwork. And the ending is very, if you remember EC Comics, if you remember Tales from the Crypt and Creepshow, it's very much like that. The ending is probably one of my favorite endings of any film I've been in. Very, very, very cool ending. So I enjoy that film. I enjoyed writing that film. I wrote a short film, which is part of the Psycho Street anthology called Lewis, which is a 70s homage to the occult films. Very much like The Wicker Man or The Sentinel or To the Devil a Daughter. Very creepy, very satanic cult. Everything was done in 70s style. So it's one of my favorites that I've been part of. Right now, what do I look for in a character or what I'm working on? Wow, I like excuse me. I like very eccentric characters. I like different characters. I don't just I always get to play thugs and bad guys, but I always like something different, something unique. And I have a character that's been presented to me for next year. I really can't talk about the project, but it's something very, very unique and very different, and I'm very excited if it pans out. So that's kind of what I look for. I don't mind playing the heavy. I actually rather play evil. I rather play bad guy or villain. But it's every once in a while, like what I'm doing with Within These Walls, it's kind of nice to play a good guy too. So, but I do migrate towards the bad characters. I don't know why that is. Maybe that says something about me. I don't know. As far as writing goes, just finished a very, very unique werewolf script. Big werewolf fan. I love American Werewolf in London. I love the horror comedy in that film. So I have a very unique werewolf film. It's very not comedy. It's more like American Psycho meets a werewolf. It's kind of that. So hopefully we can get that off of the ground. And then my friend Trevor Wright wrote a short about a serial killer. It's kind of a horror comedy, believe it or not. So as far as writing, I like humor a lot, but I also like something very unique too. So that's what I kind of migrate towards when it comes to writing. Everybody thinks that acting is all this glamour, especially if you're working in an indie film. You do long days. You do, you work for very little money, if any money at all, and you do it because you're passionate about it. I will tell you, there's so many funny things that have happened, especially in horror. The film I was talking to you about that I did called Come. I remember at the very end of the film, we had been shooting all night at a house outside a lake in Bloomington, Indiana, and I was being eaten alive by tentacles from a creature. At the end of the tentacles were vaginas, if that tells you anything. And of course, the whole creature was slimed up like the creatures were in the Alien movies with Sigourney Weaver. So these vagina tentacle things are all over me, and one's by my head. And the director, who is a very eccentric fellow, very, very artistic, very intelligent, looks over at me. He said, "I want you to reach over and tongue kiss one of the tentacles, the vaginas on the tentacles." And my answer was, "What?" He goes, "No, really, I'm not going to make it graphic. I'm not going to make it look bad." But so that's probably the weirdest thing I've ever had to do in an indie horror film, is to actually kiss a fake vagina tentacled monster. So there you have it. It's always glamorous here. As far as upcoming projects or projects I've been working on, since I've been in Los Angeles, I did a film called Jurassic Block, which I think is going to be airing on the Sci-Fi Network. If you like dinosaurs, that's your movie. I did a movie with Felissa Rose and Eric Roberts called Death by Solicitation, kind of a dark comedy horror film. I had a small role in the film, but I got a chance to work with some great people. I'm not sure that'll be out probably next year. Right now I'm working on, I think I mentioned the supernatural feature film thriller Within These Walls with Kelsey Zakowski and again with Felissa Rose, in the middle of shooting that. Next year I have about 3 projects I'm looking at. I'm not at liberty to talk about them yet. I'm meeting with some filmmakers and producers on Friday. And then we are trying to revamp the reality show about Muscle Wolf Productions, about the bodybuilder horror actors. The show was tentatively titled Hot Blooded, but that may change. So I got some really good prospects coming up. Getting ready for the holidays. I'm going to kind of wind down for a little while and then come back rearing to go like a tiger, or a wolf, I guess, may be a better answer. So, okay, well, I tell you what. In closing, I will say, I've talked about being an actor, being a bodybuilder, being a writer, being a producer, but my number one job, or my number one favorite role in life, is being a father. I have an amazing 18-year-old daughter named Aubrey. She's incredible, and she makes all of this worthwhile. So, it changes your life, and to have a great child just makes everything worth it. So I thank God every day that I have somebody like her in my life. So thought I'd let you guys know that if you're not a father and you want to be, it's a good gig. It's a good gig. Thanks for taking your time to learn a little bit about me. If you would like to know more, I am on Facebook under Marv Blauvelt. Please friend me. You can also learn about Muscle Wolf Productions. We have a Facebook page, Muscle Wolf Productions, easy enough. If you're interested in any of the films I've appeared in, you could probably find Sculpture, 3 Slices of Life, Psycho Street, The Green Monster. Any of those films are available on Amazon, and I'm sure if you do a Google search you can find them. And I am represented by the awesome Matt Chasen. So you can contact my manager, Matt Chasen, at Matt's Management. He has a website. I'm very flattered to be represented by him. He represents some uber talented people, some amazingly talented people. So I am very humbled by my peers. So I hope you enjoyed talking to me. I enjoyed talking to you. And keep an eye out for me. I'll hope I can entertain in the future.